Okay, so this is 3.3.7, and it says let's look at the rater class again. So this was something that it was a problem in 3.2, and basically we're going to be adding onto it. So the rater class presents a rating system for a company, and the company is rated on a scale of 1 through 5. This time, there is an additional instance variable, review. The variable is set based on the company's current rating. The update review method updates the review variable. If the company is rated 3 or more, the company's review would say proudly recommended. Otherwise, it would say needs more ratings. So in other words, you need at least 3 or more ratings in order for us to make a decision about if we can proudly recommend them or not. Okay, so another thing is that there's a toString method that returns the name of the company followed by its review. That's what we did in 3.2. We want to update the toString method to match the format. So it looks like this time we want to format it with the company's name, space, colon, space, and then the review message. All right. There's also a set rating method we need to do. It's going to be the same thing as we did in 3.2. So let's get started. It looks like we have to do something with main also, but we'll take a look at that in just a bit. All right, so let's go ahead and go to our rater class. We can just check it out to see what is here for us already. So like they said, there is an added instance variable called review here. It also has a string called name and a double called rating. All right, here's our constructor that initializes each of those 3 instance variables. And what we need to do is we need to implement a couple methods here. We need a set rating method, and we need the update review method, and to create our toString method. All right. So let's see, set rating. We are going to set a rating to its new rating as long as the new rating is no more than 5. Remember that the most amount of stars or whatever is going to be 5. So we want to check to see, oops, inside the curly braces, there we go. We want to check to see if the new rating is no more than 5. So how would I write that? What's the Boolean expression I would need to put inside of these parentheses here? So how do I check to see if the new rating is no more than 5? Almost. Almost. Oh no, you're right. 5. I was looking at it wrong. Yeah, so we want to see, but what am I going to put on the left-hand side of that? So what's the variable that I'm checking? Yeah, new rating. So I'm going to say new rating, oops, new rating has to be less than or equal to 5. Okay, so as long as that is true, we're going to go ahead and say that our rating variable, that's the name of our private instance variable up here, can get set to our new rating. Otherwise, we don't want to change the rating because it's an invalid rating value. So that's it. That's all we had to do for that one. That was pretty much the same thing as what we did for 3.2. And then we also want to update our review. So we're going to update the review line based on rating. So let's remind ourselves what those conditions are. So if the company is rated 3 or more, the review would say proudly recommended. So we want to check to see if the rating value, this guy right here, is rated 3 or more. So finish this statement for me, finish this Boolean expression. What do I want to put here to check to see if the rating is 3 or more? Yes, so greater than or equal to 3. And if that is true, I want to go ahead and I want to set the review, the string called review, to a message that says proudly recommended, right? Let's see. Yeah, proudly recommended. Okay, if that's not true, so else, I want to set this review to something else. I want to set it to, what was it? Not enough ratings? Needs more ratings. Needs more ratings. Okay, so if it's 3 or above, proudly recommended. Otherwise, the review is going to say needs more ratings. Okay, so that is the update review method. The get rating is already done for us. It just returns the rating. Now we need to create a toString method. And it's a little bit different than what we wrote for the ratings in 3.2. This time we want to just return a string representation of the company, followed by a space, a colon, another space, and then whatever the message in review is. So we're going to do return name. I think that's what it's called. Yeah, so name. There it is. Plus, and I'm going to put a space, a colon, and another space because that's what I see here. Space, colon, space. And then I want to add on the review. Right, I'm getting that from this private instance variable right here. Okay, so that should return in the form of this company name, colon, review. So now they have not provided for us any code in the main class. So we're gonna have to do that. So it says here in main, create a rater object. So let's go ahead and do that. So let's create a rater object. And it says that we need to set its rating to something less than 3, with a rating less than 3. So let's start off with that. I'm going to say rater, and I'll just call this R1 for the variable name. And then I'm going to have to call the constructor. So new rater, and I want to pass in, I need to pass in 2 different values here. So I need to pass in company and initial rating. So I need to think of a name. Let's call it, let's say Golden Donuts. And then just give it any rating lower than 3. So let's give it a 2. All right, so then we want to call update review on this object. So let's say R1 dot update review. And so what that's going to do when I call this method is it's going to call this method right here, and it's going to check the rating value, and it's going to see that the rating is not greater than or equal to 3, so it's going to jump down here, and it's going to set the review to needs more ratings. So it's going to set the review variable for R1, this rater object, to needs more reviews, or needs more ratings. So let's go ahead and we need to verify that by printing out the object. So this was call update review on R1. And now we're going to print out R1. All right, so let's go system.out.println R1. Okay, so we should see the name of the company, Golden Donuts, and then we should see the message needs more ratings. So let's try that. Oh, I forgot a semicolon somewhere. Oh, okay, I see what happened. So since I copied and pasted from the text here, sometimes it tries to convert from one kind of encoding to Unicode, and these quotation marks are not, they're a different character. So I just need to go fix that. So I need to find that over here. So see how the quotes look different? It's because they're a completely different character, and they use that for just like styling. There we go. So I'm going to fix those quotations, and I believe that's the only thing that I need to fix. So let's try that again. Okay, so now we see Golden Donuts and then needs more ratings. So that's what we expected. And then they want us to do just a couple more steps. So they want us to use set rating to now change the rating to something above 3, but less than 5. So change R1's rating to something between 3 and 5. So we're going to do that by saying R1 dot update, or sorry, set rating. And then just give it, I don't know, 4. Let's give it a 4 rating. So now that we've done that, we have to update the review again. And the reason we have to do that is we want to be able to update the review private instance variable here. And the only way we can do that is by calling the update review method to check to see if the rating is different now. So now the rating is 4. So 4 is greater than or equal to 3, and now the review instance variable gets turned into this message. It gets this message, proudly recommended. All right, so now if we print out the object again, so I'm going to just print that out, we'll see a different message. We'll see Golden Donuts and then proudly recommended. So let's run that. So that second line, you can see that the rating has been updated, and so now it says proudly recommended. Okay. Any questions on that one? Let's go ahead and check the code, make sure I did everything. All right, cool. So remember that this lesson is all about using if-else, not just a bunch of sequences of if statements. And so we used the else clause here to catch all the instances where rating was not greater than or equal to 3. Okay, so let's go ahead and continue on to 3.3.8. So this is player score. And in player score, they want us to write a program that asks for the name and number of points scored by 2 basketball players. And then we want to print the players' scores in alphabetical order according to the players' names. So we're going to be practicing something that we covered back in Unit 2, which is using the string method compare to. And so we'll talk about how that works again. So they've included the documentation here in case we forgot. So let's just get started with the first part, where we are asking the user for input as far as the name and number of points scored by 2 basketball players. Okay, so we're going to do something like this. All right. So we want to go ahead and start by listing the steps we need to take. They've already created the scanner object for us. So the first thing we want to do is prompt the user for player 1's name. Next thing is store the user's input as a string. since it's going to be a name. Then we want to prompt the user for player 2's name. And then we're going to store the user's input as a string. Then we're going to go ahead and we are going to ask, we're going to prompt the user for player 1's score, but we're going to actually display the name in our prompt. So notice how it says enter Tracy's score. We're gonna do that. So then we want to go ahead and we want to store the user's input as an int because our score is going to be whole numbers. Then we want to prompt, this is a lot of steps. It seems like it's a lot of steps, but it's, at least this part is pretty simple. Prompt the user for player 2's score, and again, we're going to be displaying the player's name in prompt. All right, that's, oh, and then we need to store user's input as an int. So that's all the steps for just this part right here. We'll talk about the next part after we fill out the code. So let's get started with the first prompt. It's just going to be a print statement, print line, oops, system out, print line. So we're just going to say enter player 1's name. Okay, so that's our prompt. And then we want to store the answer as a string. So I'll just call it P1, or actually P1 name would be better. And then in order to grab a string from user input, we're going to say input dot next line. Okay, so that gets the user input and stores that as a string. Then I want to ask for player 2's name. So I can just change this to say player 2's name. And then I want to go ahead and store that. So I'm going to say string P2 name gets input dot next line. Okay, so now I've got both of the players' names, and remember now I'm going to have to use these variables in my next prompts because I don't want to say enter player 1's score. I want to say enter whatever their name is, score. So let's say system.out.println. So I'm going to say enter, and then I'm going to put a space after enter, put my closing quotation, and then I'm going to display player 1's name like this by just calling the variable name. And then I want to append an apostrophe S so that, say the name was Carol, it would say Carol's, right? And then score. Okay, so that will print that message, and then we just need to store the user's answer. So int, we can call this P1 score gets, and then we just grab that from our user input. So input dot next int. Oops, int. Okay, and then we'll do the same thing for player 2. So we're going to prompt the user for player 2's score. So instead of saying enter P1 name score, we're going to say enter P2 name's score. And then just grab that last bit of user input. So int P2 score equals input.next int. All right, that was a lot of code just to get two players' names and scores. So now we've got all of our data. Now we need to use our logic in order to display the points by alphabetical order of the names. So in this case, Carol comes before Tracy. So even though we entered Tracy first, Carol is going to be displayed first because Carol comes first in the alphabet. So in order to determine which name comes first in the alphabet, we're going to need to use compare to. And so if you remember in compare to, actually instead of opening this, I'm going to open up the Java quick reference. I think it's a little easier to understand. Let's see if it'll open in the browser. Quick reference, there it is. Open a new tab, new window. It's gonna download it. Okay, let me just share this part of my screen then. Share. Okay, so we're gonna be using compare to. And so the way to, we're gonna recall how compare to works. It's gonna return a negative number if the calling string, so on the left-hand side here, the calling string comes before the other one in the alphabet. Okay, so we're gonna check to see if player 1's name comes before player 2's name in the alphabet, then this value will be negative. Okay, so the way that we're gonna write this, let's go ahead and, I wonder if what's the best way to do this? I kind of want to be showing this while I'm working on, I can only share one window at a time. Well, let's see if I can copy it. Let's copy this guy. Compare to, here we go. Hopefully that copies. Let's see. Okay, cool. Okay, so here's our compare to method, and that's what we're gonna use. So if you have like this dot compare to, and then give it another string called other, it's gonna return a negative number if the calling string, represented by this, comes before the other string in the alphabet. Okay, so I want to check to see if P1's name dot compare to P2's name. I want to check to see if that is less than 0. Because if this is true, it means, oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to switch over. Share. Okay, you should see the right screen now, right? Okay, so what I put here is I put P1 name dot compare to P2 name. And I put less than 0. So if this Boolean is true, it means that P1's name comes before P2's name in the alphabet, which means we want to display that one first. Okay, so if that's true, let me open up my curly braces here and close them down here. Then I want to go ahead and I want to print out P1's score first. So I'm going to say system dot out dot print line. I'm going to put P1's name, and I'm getting this from here. This is the format that we're going to print out. P1's name plus the word scored, but I'm putting spaces on either side so that you get those spaces in the sentence here. And then I want to put P1 score, and then the word points. Okay, so that's P1 score. We still need to print out P2 score as well. So I'm gonna just copy and paste that in there. Let me actually extend that out. So then for P2 score, it'll be the same thing. You're just going to say P2 name plus scored plus P2 score plus points. But this is only going to print out if this evaluates to true, right? If this evaluates to true, it means P1's name comes before P2's name in the alphabet. Otherwise, else, so this is going to be reached if the above is not true, which means P2's name comes before P1's name in the alphabet. So if that's true, then what we want to do is we want to print out P2's stats first. So we want this line to come first, where we're printing out P2 name, scored, P2 score, points, whatever those are. And then second, we want to print out P1's stats. Okay, let me get rid of this. I'm going to put this up here as a reminder. Okay, so in this step, what we did is we printed out the player scores in alphabetical order according to the player's name. So I'll put that up here as a comment. There we go. Okay, so there's the comment for what we're doing, the reminder of how compare to works, and then the application of compare to find out which name comes first in the alphabet. So now we can actually test this out. So let's go ahead and run this guy. Run the code. And why don't one of you give me a name? Give me a name we can test out. Or I'm going to use one of your names. Let's say Alfredo. Alfredo, you, and then Phoenix, yes. Phoenix, we'll do Phoenix. Alfredo, you got 1 point, but Phoenix got like 20. And so when we see this printed out, we should see Alfredo's stats first because his name comes before Phoenix. And we do see that. Let's try one more example. So let's try one example where we put a name that comes later in the alphabet first to make sure that this is really working. So let's say, I don't know, Xerxes. That comes way at the end. Xerxes and let's see, Sky. Let's put Sky's name. And for the score, let's say Xerxes got like 5 points and Sky got like a bunch of points. So we see that Sky's name comes before Xerxes in the alphabet, and so we see Sky's stats are printed before Xerxes, even though we entered Xerxes in first. And that's all because of the logic that we put together down here. So a little bit involved because you had to remember how compare to works. And I think compare to is a little confusing personally. I always have to like think about it myself. But hopefully in recording this, you can go back and watch the video and really think about how it works. And I think that's the end of our time. So let me stop the recording here.